causing, well, at least facing complex challenges together. Some thought it was a good idea to create space to collaborate.
Hello there. I'm happy you're finally here. Before you enter the exhibition, please wait here in front of the screen for a minute. I want to tell you something. Together with this audio guide, you got a receipt. Have you read it yet? It shows you something we can do today against climate change. But let's be honest, how does that make you feel?
What difference will this small action make?
Why should I change if no one else does?
Isn't this the government's job?
Won't technology just fix everything anyway?
What's the point if big companies keep polluting?
Climate change leaves us feeling sad, confused, and powerless. We know we need to change, but we can't. We don't know how. Sometimes the only solution seems to be to just deny it or ignore it. So let's do that for now. Put the receipt in your pocket and forget about it. Foundation We Are presents Collaborations for Future, a project born from these doubts and the urgency in the face of climate change, not knowing what the right thing to do is, but trusting that it begins with collaboration. A year ago, 10 designers started working with 10 climate scientists in one-on-one collaborations, with no assignment, no predefined outcomes nor roles. They were asked to work together for 9 months on anything that they thought was worth doing.
Can we get a big, warm welcome for Foundation We Are, Pakhuis de Zwijger and Social Design Showdown. Now, who feels those things every day when they get to work on climate change? These images, urgent matters, uncertain times. For example, a couple of days ago when there was an outcome in court, Milieudefensie, Shell, right? Who feels that in the audience? Who are you?
My name is Eva Rolker. I'm from the Creative Industries Fund.
And what brought you here?
We funded the project with the program Innovatielabs.
So when a group of people comes to you and they say, we're going to create space, they don't have to have a certain result, they don't have to have a certain way of working, we're just going to place them together and create space. Then why? Why do you support that?
Well, that was actually the idea of this program, to give some space to creative people, in this case designers, to do experiments and take time and space to do their own thing without a fixed outcome. That was exactly the idea of this program.
Well, thank you very much for supporting it. And to you personally, what is your role within projects like that?
I fund these kind of projects, but mainly for the designers.
And your personal role, what is your vision within these projects?
I think we need to do this because otherwise we will not cope. Because just from a scientific perspective, it's very useful and important, but you also need to be able to make it feasible, tactile, or ways of communicating, and also give new perspectives on these types of research.
Thank you very much. Who in the audience was not involved in this project? Who's still new to it? Oh, there. I'm going to run to the back. Yeah, I'm very sorry. I'm coming to you. So my name is Marsha. I'm the moderator today, and this is what I do. I like to go into the audience because I think a beautiful project like this is very important, and to host events like this is very important. But to have people here who are not involved yet is also very important. Why? Why do you think it's important that you are here?
Why I think it is important. I think I'm very interested in what is happening here, and I just received a message that this was happening of a friend, and my studio is next door. So I thought, let's be inspired.
And what's your name?
Annegien van Doorn.
And what do you do? What's your background?
Photography artist.
What kind of photography? What kind of artist?
Well, this is getting a serious interview. I also work with teams with nature and how we cope with nature, and also with fake nature, and actually the unnatural way we deal with nature normally in our daily life. And my commissioned work is also mostly based with these kind of topics to make the world a little bit better.
And do you also recognize that indeed these complex challenges ask for multidisciplinary collaboration?
I think so, yeah, because we cannot do it all in our own little corner, I think, and I'm happy to see something positive. I cancelled, for example, another thing this week of going to a movie, which was only to see how bad it goes with the world. So I'm happy to see something, you know, which gives you hope, at least.
Thank you very much for coming. I hope in the end, indeed, you will go inspired. Just like a big round of applause for this woman. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I do. I like to go off stage, run into the audience and have a very collaborative conversation, because I truly believe that if we want to make a step forward, we really have to do it together. You know, if people in all kinds of areas and sectors and disciplines with all kinds of different backgrounds and knowledges working on very complex matter. And I think the only way to move forward is to really collaborate. So when I heard of this project going on, I thought, wow, some space being created. And it's very nice also to hear that indeed it's being supported financially. Who was involved from the very beginning of this project? Bernard, of course, Cornelia, of course. I have here. I'm already going to run to some of the speakers today. So this is, I believe you're a scientist, aren't you?
Yeah, a hardcore.
Hardcore. What is a hardcore scientist?
I work mainly on developing numerical models to project the changes of the Antarctic ice sheet.
So if we are a photographer or an artist or maybe a design researcher, it would be very handy to just give you a call to really know what's going on.
Sure, yeah. If more people would do that, then we would not have this flawed decision yesterday, because scientifically it's completely incorrect what happened yesterday in the court case.
Yeah, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on it? Why is it such a strange outcome of this court case?
Well, this is going to be a short lecture in climate science then, so be prepared. Well, we know what we have to emit to stay below the 1.5 degree limit, right? This is scientifically known. It's written in scientific reports which are accepted by all governments. From that, it follows also what you have to reduce. That is exactly what was asked for by Milieudefensie. So there is no reason that the court can say that they don't know the level of reductions which they'll have to make, because this is already scientifically proved and defined and approved by governments. So it's completely strange that they argue that they don't know. That means that they don't believe what their governments have approved already. So that shows, I think, that just writing science publications is not sufficient to convince people. And that, I think, in the end brought me here, because I think it's also nice to try to convey messages in a different way than what we are used to do in science.
And where are all your colleagues?
I just saw one, coincidentally.
But this is a very personal view. Is this something we could cultivate within your area?
I think the arena is changing, and people more and more are aware that communication is more than just writing science papers. So I think times are changing, but not everybody is convinced yet, I think.
Okay, so we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you very much. Big round of applause for the scientists in the audience. So the next 1.5 hours, of course, we will talk about Collaborations for Future. What is this project about? It's a research project. It's actually simply a space created for scientists and designers to work together. Whatever they feel like is urgent, and also in what way they feel they should work on this, right? So, of course, we cannot explain to you all what happened in all the projects and with all those collaborations, but we will use 4 projects in different ways to see what actually happened and what are the things we can learn. Merel Witteman will, in the beginning, really tell from the beginning till the end what happened during her project. She will be, I think, overwhelmed with all the process steps that she's been going through together with her partner. After that, we will dive into 3 more projects. But I think it's also very important to share together what we all need to move forward into the future to continue to work on climate change. Because, of course, it is not over yet. And as we just heard, we still have some steps to make. But it's not up to me to show you what happened in these last 9 months, but we do have a beautiful video and we do have the people here who can talk about this. But first, let's see a recap of these last 9 months.
Back to normal, to share your stories of connection.
So the project that I've been working on with Isabella is all about the abstraction and the kind of disassociation of climate policies.
Project is this Energy Futures prep pack.
One of the first ice creams that comes from the mold. Let's give it a try. It should also not be too much fun, right? This ice cream, because it's about such a heavy topic. Whoa, ice melts. Whoa.
Round of applause for this project again. For now, I would like to ask Cornelia Dimitrova to come here from Foundation We Are, one of the directors. Thank you very much. Cornelia, when you actually started this, I think this dream probably in the beginning, did you know what to do? Did you know what people to go to and also to already invite who? Was it totally clear or was it just a hint, just a feeling?
Well, all of the people we ended up working with were people we didn't know before, with some exceptions. I knew Merel. But all the other people were people we just met in the process. You know, it all started with one very short email that I sent to Helene de Koning. She had just given her inauguration speech at TU Eindhoven, in which she expressed the same sentiment from which we work, which is you need to come together with people from different disciplines. You need to implement creativity earlier within research processes. And every once in a while you get your message across to the right person who can then point you to 7 people. I emailed those 7 people. 5 of them had a digital coffee with me. One of them is Roderick, another one was Kim, Frank, Detlef, and Jonas. And we ended up making this project together with them. But what you also need is, of course, the right occasion. You don't just need fellow adventurers to go with you. You need the opportunity, which is what the Innovatielabs presented.
Why now? Why do you think we are now on that page?
I think we've realized that with climate change, with the state of the world, uncertainty is really where we operate now. And we need to figure out how to operate within uncertainty. And that sometimes means bringing 2 people together who don't know each other, inviting them to collaborate on something they haven't defined yet. And in a very optimistic way, I think this is how we're going to manage climate change. It's going to be a few people who don't know each other, but finding a way to work together.
Yeah. Well, please maybe inform everybody, just give an introduction in what actually it means to you, this project. I already mentioned we're going to talk about 4 of the projects. Maybe you can also elaborate a little bit on the other 6 projects that happened and what are the key lessons learned for us.
A lot of questions, Marsha. What it means to me and Bernard, because we wrote this funding application for the Innovatielabs more than 2 years ago. We spent many hours dreaming up what it could be and how it could grow. And of course, whatever happened was also up to the other people that joined us later on this journey. But what for us it gave was an opportunity to scale up the way we work, this is really how we started the foundation. It was 6 years ago, 8 of us, and we really wanted to find out what does it take to work with human rights defenders when there is no assignment, when you're not just going to make their poster more pretty, but you might actually find something else you can do with them. This method that we developed then, we were able to scale up, and eventually the dream was always that we would create a space where designers could work with experts on equal terms and not be told to make something look nice or to make something attractive or to communicate something, but to really together define what is that action we should be taking, what is that message we should be conveying. For us, it was an opportunity to create that space also for other people. It's really been amazing to actually get the trust of so many people who joined us in this process.
Well, the way you have actually initiated also Foundation We Are, I know you are people who like to, take that extra step. You also, I mean, there's a book now. You've made a book. There was Dutch Design Week, where you could really celebrate also and really share with a larger audience what you've been doing. Why this book? Why is it needed to make this book? What is in there? And where do you want it to go?
I want it to go in the hands of policymakers who define the funding models around research and culture.
Yep.
I want it to go in the hands of people from various institutes and organizations who want to enable these kind of collaborations, but are wondering how. How do you commission this kind of work? How do you really create space for two people? And with our current models, often people have to, in advance, define an outcome, and then they have to strive towards that outcome. And everybody who's creative and who's a researcher knows you never know where you're going to end up at the end. But sometimes we start working towards that specific ending point rather than taking a detour to the thing that really makes sense to be doing. And that's the thing we asked them, the 10 designers and the 10 scientists. We said, meet each other, work together, find out what it makes sense for you to be working on, and try to do it.
And is in this book all the process steps they've been going through, what have they been learning from each other? What are the important outcomes in this book?
The 10 projects.
10 projects are
because
in there?
one of the most common questions we always got was, okay, but Cornelia, what are these people going to do?
Yeah.
And I said they will do whatever they want. We'll just be there to listen.
Where did you get the trust? I'm going to just simply
well,
place
Eva
them
just
together.
Explained it to you. It was this unique moment that what happened was with COVID, the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science realized the cultural sector is just under enormous pressure. We need innovation.
Yeah.
But we are not going to be able to define that top-down. We just need to create funds, create space, essentially, for people to innovate. And within the Innovatielabs, there have been so many different kinds of innovation programs. But ours focused specifically on the capacity of designers and scientists to work together.
But how could you really have the, really find the trust, like the basic trust? Okay, I can really let go. And I mean, if you are, I don't know, a designer, and you think you have an idea and you are creating it, and in this way you were initiating a very large project, where did you find the trust to really let go and to really give them that freedom?
That was my biggest lesson throughout this journey.
Okay.
How do you sit on your hands without actually, when you see, oh, this person could be going in that direction, they could do this, but then actually it's not my responsibility to, or it shouldn't be. How do you find the trust in the people? I think by talking with them. Very early on I had several phone calls, and I remember talking, for example, with Mathilde, and she said, I know so many scientists, and I really want to work with them, but how can I work with them? I hope through these projects that I find out what is the thing that I can say within your project, this is where you can put me in. And I remember somewhere halfway through the process, I think it was just after the field trip that you guys did, you were completely through the roof with how happy you were, because you were saying, like, I finally know it. I can be a brilliant field research assistant. I can make so much better pictures than a scientist ever can, because I look at their work and their practice and their method and their materials and everything from a totally different lens. And then Haley was really happy with those pictures and materials and the whole conversations, that perspective. That's why we brought them together, because we knew, okay, they both were practiced with field work. That means they have a sensitivity to materiality. How do you collect things? Which thing do you choose to pick from that mud which is in front of you, right? It's a particular way of looking at the world, which I think they both have shared with each other and have exchanged, because when you look at it, you know, with the knowledge of a scientist or with the knowledge of a designer.
Well, we'll have them on stage.
Yes.
But you picked 10 couples. That's like, I don't know, maybe a dating service. How did you put the twos together, the two pairs?
Well, we looked at the shared method.
Shared methods?
We also looked at shared topics of work.
So that you knew there was some common ground somewhere.
Yeah, that was designed, but some of them completely then went in a different direction. Carl and Frank, for instance, they both work with electronics and devices and complicated things that I'll probably still not be able to name with the correct names. But they are able to construct systems that do things with data that are amazing. And I thought these guys are going to have a great time in the lab. They're going to construct something I cannot even imagine, but it's up to them to imagine it. So very early on, they thought, okay, let's make a game, let's make this. And then they realized, yeah, all of these things have already been made. You know, if a climate-themed game would fix the issue, then it would have been fixed by now, because we have so many of them. You know, what really makes sense is to look closer to home, and that's where, now, Carol's personal background, he's an activist, he's present a lot on the streets, he speaks up for issues he finds important, and he has learned a certain set of skills around that. Okay. And that is something that he opened up and shared with Frank, and it's what allowed them, essentially with a very simple graphic design of a poster, Kom in actie, KNMI, Klimaatneutrale Meteorologische Instituut. In that way, they were able to start that movement.
Yeah. Can you also maybe give another example how you put two together?
Andrea and Avi. Avi is a colleague of Haley. What they did together I find very fascinating, because a lot of Avi's practices have to do with catching birds, understanding their movement and their patterns of behavior in relation to sea level rise, and then weaving stories of meaning about what is actually happening with the sea level in relation to the Wadden Sea. Is it able to adapt fast enough? And that, how do you weave meaning into this kind of data, into this kind of stories? That's actually what really fascinated Andrea. I think in that collaboration we also learned how important the personal circumstances are. In the meantime, Avi got pregnant. So that means your attention goes where, your role within such a collaboration shifts. Yep. And you know, in any other kind of funding program, that role is also fixed. There is little space for that role to evolve with your circumstances. And here we saw, okay, so there is space for this evolution. Andrea's role also shifted, and she made a beautiful film, audio meditation that allows you to observe a landscape the same way Avi does, so that maybe you will care more about the Wadden Sea.
So it sounds like you were able to sit on your hands. You did have all those visions on outcomes, but you could let go because actually they were giving you, so you had a certain open mind. You were really also learning from all these. I'm quite jealous actually of her role now because she has all the insight. But you are not alone, right? Maybe let's. I see Bernard there. I will see you later on stage. I know that Alex is somewhere. There's Alex. She's been working also very hard. Alex, what was your role?
Okay, so officially I've been program coordinator throughout the Collaborations for Future program. So I've been, what have I been doing? I've been in contact with the designers and the scientists in the program and just checking where are they in their timelines in the process, what are they needing at the moment. And we've had several moments where we came together as a community in different meetings, which was really important to kind of figure out where are we, what are questions that are coming up right now, and how can we help people support them in this process as well.
So Cornelia's challenge was to sit on her hands. I can imagine your challenge was also with this amount of people being very smart, quirky, busy agendas, to be able to bridge them and to get them together and also keep them focused on the project. Was that one of the challenges, maybe?
Yeah, I think the key thing that I've learned and that how I've come out of this is really embracing the flexibility, because we had no idea what was going to happen, and we had a brief kind of a little bit of a structure of what the different meetings would look like and who would be leading the research on this, and it just completely changed, and we really had to figure out what's really necessary now. It doesn't matter where we thought we would be, but how can we make sure that we still get everyone to deliver something that they're proud of, and also who's the best person we brought in external voices as well. So that was I think a really valuable thing that we discovered, that it actually enriched what we were doing so much more than what we could have imagined at the start, bringing in those people depending on what was needed.
So bringing together all those people, 9 months of collaboration, then you're working on a book. We also had all these get-togethers together. We had Dutch Design Week. If you now look at this book, do you have a favorite spread in the book on a certain page?
That's very difficult. I mean, there's some really beautiful graphics. So shout out to Olivia, because I think maybe my favorite page, there's 2 pages I don't know which one but there's one here, which is, I don't know.
I will show them later. Yeah.
This is there's a spread on the individual timelines that shows really how diverse the timelines were. Exactly that one. So kind of how diverse, how some people were really meeting very, very regularly and structurally, and for other people that just really didn't make sense, and they had different field field trips that they structured their work around, and other timelines are meeting and entangling. So I think that's one of my favorite spreads. I can't name just one, but this, if I have to, then this might be it. Yeah.
A warm applause for this woman here as a project lead. And you, Corey, what's your favorite spread? You have one?
Well, I mean, I had the same.
You had the same. Why is this one so important then? What do we see? How can we read this?
Well, first of all, you see that everything which happens until here is never funded, because this is when 2 people meet each other, they find an idea they're both excited about, they figure out in what way that might become something they could take action on, and hopefully somewhere here there's in parallel a good funding for both the scientific and the design aspect of it. And hopefully, if they are incredibly lucky, they both get that funding. And then hopefully they're both still available to do that collaboration. So there's all that uncertainty, which is at the beginning, is never funded, is never enabled in a structural sense, at least not for this kind of collaborations that we've set up.
Now, I know that there's as many designers and at least creatives, let's say it in a broad sense, actually they embrace uncertainty. They like not to know what is going to happen. They like also to set their own boundaries. You know, many times when I'm interviewing designers, and we're talking about the assignment, the first question is always to the one giving the assignment, the opdrachtgever, the client. Okay, but why is this the question? Why is this the assignment? Why aren't we doing something different? Who recognizes this? Always asking the client, well, maybe it could be more about this, more about that. Somebody who recognizes that in the audience as a designer? Yeah, Merel? Some other maybe? Yeah, uncertainty. Why for designers is uncertainty not such a big problem, actually?
I don't think it's a problem. I think uncertainty is something, it's all around us, and I think from uncertainty there could be a lot of things emerge. So, I don't know.
For the scientist, let's go to you here. Uncertainty, is it also nice for you to have this uncertain time?
I guess it's my profession. Sea level rise is only about uncertainty.
Exactly. So that also creates a bond, right? You actually embrace a lot of uncertainty. Is that in society a general feeling that uncertain times actually we all, go good on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, most people would like to have no uncertainty in life, but I think the reality is different.
Do we maybe have a lawyer in the audience? Somebody who knows everything about law? I know there's somebody who knows everything about law. Francis, are you here? Is Francis here somewhere?
I think she'll come a bit later.
She'll come a bit later. So there's nobody. But what is very interesting is I've been working at the B&O, and they have all these lawyers, and they really like to have these to create really certain space, right?
Marsha, what is B&O for the people that don't know it?
B&O is the Association of Dutch Designers, and it's really fun to see the people who are actually really working really hard for designers, but have such a different scope and such a different mentality. So who in the audience feels like, oh, I like some certainty. I like conditions. I like rules, and everybody also here, you also like that. Let's go back to you. Who are you? Who are you?
My name is Balint, and I help Merel. I just an intern there. I didn't help with this project specifically, but if you ask me about rules, that's kind of one design approach to design rules. It's called the conditional design. And I just, it's also just interesting to design or define some rules for example, a computer program, and then just let the computer program run and then see what comes out from that there.
Yeah, so uncertainty actually is a given fact. Everything around us right now is uncertain. And then we have the talent and the quality to create some kinds of rules, context that, we can find a way to understand things and to start working on things. Well, that's interesting. And what about the future of collaborations for future? Is this the end, or is this a celebration, a reflection?
We're going on tour. What the tour specifically will look like will be discussed with all our partners, because in what way does something like this land? You cannot force a Dutch Design Week or curated exhibition into the institute. Sometimes you have to bring the right story, the right examples. There's of course the methodology and everything we've learned of what it takes to really support a group of 20 people in a process of uncertainty like that. That's something we will bring to our upcoming projects and programs that we're creating. We are already implementing it in our own way of working. Actually, how do you do it? There's also a really nice example. Can I mention it? Yeah? It was before the book was finished, but one of the great things, of course, about doing this kind of project where you have specifically designers and scientists is that there is already a lot of policymakers and grant and funding organizations responsible for these groups of people. And every once in a while you get to make a project that lands in the hands of the right people who also then get to make programs that create these kind of collaborations. So there's currently a collaboration being prepared between SIA, which is part of the NWO, and the Stimuleringsfonds, where they're looking, and this is one of their references, they have other references, but how do you actually, what requirements do you put forward when you're not going to ask for a predefined outcome, or when you want to create good collaborations, how can you recognize them in advance, right?
Okay.
The method is a great example. People who are able to do something together will be able to do something together. I think it's much harder, for instance, in the case of Isabel and Brogan, they're both fascinated by policy, and they had amazing conversations about climate policy, but at the level of having a shared practice, I think that's where their collaboration also was really struggled, and eventually they found an amazing way out of it. But we've learned, okay, actually, different things happen between different collaborations.
Yeah.
And some are intuitive, easy. I think Nikki will talk about one of the really easy ways of collaborating with somebody when you're just able to do things together. When you can take it from the good conversation to also the practical action. Things like this we've learned, things like this that have been shared with people who can then make that happen in other spaces.
Thank you very much, Cornelia. Let's get to the project. Can I have your mic? Thank you very much. Big round of applause for Cornelia again. As promised, we will now get to the 4 projects and see what we learned from this. And also, as promised, we'll first have Merel Witteman to come and show us from the beginning until the end what actually happened in those 9 months. Merel Witteman.
Thank you. So, yeah, as you might already know or not know, Roderick and me made ice. So I think it's very good to watch this presentation with the ice in your hand, melting. So those will be handed out now. And
scientists around the globe are studying a sleeping giant that, if awakened, could change the face of the entire planet. Its name is Antarctica. Right now, glaciers in the mountains and the Greenland and Antarctica ice sheets are all contributing roughly equally to sea level rise through melting. But in the near future, once the giant awakens, this might change completely, simply because 90% of all ice on Earth is located right there in Antarctica, enough to wipe out all coastal cities of the world.
okay, so I actually planned to show that video now, but that video was one of the clips that Roderick shared with me when we started our collaboration, because he is a sea level rise expert and I am a designer. And what did I know about Antarctic? It's also nice when the light allows, no thanks, to read the warning on the backside of your ice cream, because you have to be, it's fair that you be warned before you eat it. So, are the slides like going automatically, or is it because I'm not clicking anything? Can somebody pause it for me? Okay, so welcome to a project about ice. Yeah, as you know now, by now there were 10 collaborations and I was just in one, so I can only share our story. And you just saw this slide with all the super complex dots. I simplified it. We started in October last year and we ended in October this year. And very simply said, you can say we had 5 different phases. Research, finding common ground, reading articles, watching lectures that Roderick gives. Then we started to collaborate. I will show pictures soon. Then we had this idea phase. Then we had quite a long development and doubt phase. Like, we have an idea, but what the hell do we do with it? And then at the end, we had an execution phase, because we knew already at the beginning of this project that there would be a Dutch Design Week and that something coming out of this project would be displayed there. So now I'll go very fast. Research phase. This is us, the day we, I think, met for the first time, going on a bike trip through Eindhoven and taking pictures of everything we liked. Because, of course, we had to figure out a bit like, what does Roderick like, what does Merel like, and what do we want to present next year on this Dutch Design Week event. Then there was this big knowledge gap. Like, to collaborate, you kind of have to find this common ground. So I started to read the best articles Roderick wrote. And what I found really cool is that he was one of the writers of the IPCC report. So I also read that part. That's the IPCC report about the sea level rise. From that, there was also some conclusions that I could... And also there were so many things that I didn't know, so I made all these notes. I made some more notes. Yeah, which one is a nice one to talk about? So one thing that I didn't know, for example, is that water expands when it warms up. So I always thought sea level rises because there's water melting and then you have more water. No, 50% of sea level rise is simply because warm water is bigger than cold water. And the planet is warming up, so the water is warming up, and the water is becoming bigger and bigger. Water takes up more space. Hello. So when I finally knew all these things, we were able to conversate on a normal level about the topic, and then we could really start to collaborate. So here I'm visiting Roderick in his office, which also is really different from mine. So that was a nice thing to see. There he is working, you see, serious scientist, hardcore scientist at work. And one of the things that the organization of Foundation We Are asked us to do is to make this collaboration manifesto. And I looked it up while putting together the slides. And the first points they already made for us. So those are the boring ones, like we acknowledge each other's intellectual property and blah, blah, blah. And then it gets quite funny where we together collaborated, because then at point 6, it starts, we will have hopefully interesting discussions on our way of working and collaborating. We will explore different ways to bring across scientific messages. We will not make something boring. We will both make time for this collaboration, meet once a month and email in between. And back then we already made the agreement, like emailing, reply within a day. And Roderick never missed this deadline. And we will be honest and open. So these were kind of the things we both put our signature under, and then we could really kick off. We both started to read books, The Industrie for the Future and the Collapse of Western Civilization, which was really nice because then we could also discuss these books. Also, while reading all these, I had all these things from Roderick, then we had these books together, so the first ideas started to pop up, like what can we do with this collaboration? Very short one is where I thought, like, okay, if the ice caps melt on top of the planet, maybe we can just switch them. Like, why don't we just paint all the highways in the world white? Maybe it's the same effect as having 2 polar caps. We can also just say, like, okay, if everyone constantly drinks a lot worldwide, then there's less water in the ocean. Might also work. Or maybe we can make like an embassy of future water levels where all the politicians would have their meetings about the rules and regulations that they apply or not, or maybe even these court cases. And then the embassy would go up or down depending on the outcome of the politics, so depending on the water level that is expected to follow from these conversations. Okay, many ideas, but we had to continue. And then in our collaboration, I think around every month, I presented Roderick with a presentation where I kind of structured all my thoughts. And first it was these random ideas, and then these 4 slides kind of, I think, were the tipping point where things became a bit more focused. It also started there. Instead, we should focus. In our previous meetings, blah, 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 we want to use entrepreneurship as a tool. We want to include the Antarctic as a central topic, and we do not want to make something boring. So, okay, we go to slide 2. The deeper we go into the Antarctic, the larger the need for overarching action seems. Because the Antarctic is not a business that needs a better model. It's a continent, and it guards the future sea level rise. So, kind of what Antarctica does, that whole human being and the whole planet depends on it. But also what the planet and all the people on it do, that kind of decides what happens with the Antarctic. So this is a very huge problem. Global problem, and we are tinier than this dot in this project. So, okay, pressure is rising. In this presentation, I then presented 3 ideas. 1 was called Absurd Innovations, 2, Make Melt Commercial, and 3, on local geoengineering. So to kind of take you along our process is, we had all these different ideas, kind of on the idea like, okay, when you have a problem that's so absurdly big, maybe we also need to come up with an absurd solution. And there's different things. We can pump water into space. We can have an Antarctic ice cube shuttle service. We can also have an artificial volcano, disruptive on demand, or a cloud creator. And that cloud creator was actually almost made it to the final idea, but just not, because that's actually really simple. More clouds reflect more sunlight, and that would cool down the planet. And yeah, a lot of people make that very complex, and they call it geoengineering. But I figured out, Googling, that you can just create your own cloud maker. You can just order that on Amazon. And then we only needed a speedboat and some solar panels. And then I thought Roderick and me can just make a lot of clouds during this project. But we can also take another direction. We can start the International Participative Climate Cooling Engineering Project, short IPCCP. And then you can think of different things, like maybe we can start a mirror army, that whenever the sun shines really bright in a spot on Earth, we just text everyone that's part of this mirror army. When you are part of the mirror army, it means you have a mirror. And then this mirror army kind of goes to the place where the sun is shining, they all put up their shields, and we just reflect all that sunlight back to space. Option 2, salty fireworks. Now, once a year, we fire a lot of fireworks, and then we have these clouds. That's quite nasty, but one of the advantages is that always the day after the 1st of January, the planet warms less because sunlight is reflected back. And then thirdly, I thought, what if we can use this 9 months to kind of make this thing that you put on your vacuum cleaner, and then we can just all become CO2 suckers. So, yeah, 3 other ideas. Roderick thought, okay, give me idea 3. Here we go. Make melting commercial. This is a quote from the book that we both read. And yeah, this kind of summarizes the problem. This is a book. I really advise you to take a picture now and to buy it and to read it. It's really nice. It's a book written in the future by a future historian. And she reflects, like, why did climate change happen? Why didn't we do anything? And she says, like, scientists recognized some of the difficulties they were facing, and they were grappling with how to communicate their knowledge effectively. While they were making some headway, a large part of Western society was rejecting that knowledge in favor of an empirically inadequate yet powerful ideological system. Even at the time, some recognized this system as a quasi-religious faith, hence the label market fundamentalism. This is really written in hardcore scientist word, but what she actually says is, yeah, there were just voices louder than the scientists that took away the attention from the problems. And that's when we decided, okay, let's translate scientific facts to a form of communication that does work. Let's just make this capitalism work for us. Let's start a brand on ice. We can use tricks and communication from existing thriving ice cream brands. We can also use forms of existing ice cream culture. Everyone likes ice. We can look into different production methods. And we could even make ice from seawater. Why not? And then we can also incorporate these scientific facts into our products. Like we can use these ice cream sticks, the packagings. Maybe we can even use a scientist as an ice cream guy. So this, yeah, you already know, idea 3 won, and we continued. And this is when we had the idea, but also the doubt, like what to do with it. So the idea became clearer. Those are these slides. You scream, I scream, we all scream. For what do we? Nobody seems to scream for this ice, and everybody seems to scream for that ice. And although those 2 ices are different in looks and scale, composition-wise, they're practically the same. They're both water. There is one big difference, though. That ice, when it melts, your hands get sticky. And when this ice melts, sea level rises up to 58 meters. So our plan is an ice cream brand that screams for more ice in the Antarctic. We'll make our ice from sea level rise. And our ambition is to become the world's first sea level neutral company. So that means that we freeze exactly as much seawater as is melting in the Antarctic. And we will also use these commercial ice cream communication codes to speak up for all the ice that is melting. We'll incorporate scientific facts into our ice. And there's a picture missing, but that's because you all already have it in your hands. There's a stick with a scientific fact. There's a story on your ice cream packaging. And so that's something we did. And lastly, we wanted to open our doors, the doors of the ice cream shop during the Dutch Design Week in 2024. So, plan was there, we only had to execute it. So, to execute this, we needed, of course, seawater. So I went to this seawater plant. It's from a commercial brand that makes water from seawater. So that was perfect. We made an agreement. I could come there and pick up enough water to make 2,000 ice creams. And then also these ices, I thought people need to eat them, so they have to maybe have a flavor. And for that, I found this company, Siroop, and they make syrups from ingredients that grow within 50 kilometers of the Dutch coast. So this is their marketing manager, and she believed in this ice cream brand, and she said, I will sponsor the Siroop for your project. So that was done as well. Then we still needed like a visual identity, a logo, so that was a short process. And of course then, most importantly, a freezer. And then it was up to me to make a lot of ices in all the different flavors. And then together with Roderick, we also decided, okay, what are the stories that we want to tell as a scientist? What are the things that you really want everyone to know? Also, from my perspective, what are the things that I now know from this collaboration, but I didn't know before, but I think everybody should know? And then also, how do we translate those scientific knowledges into something that fits on an ice cream pack? And here also, we had help from Rufus. He's also here. He also rewrote some of the text. So if you think like, hey, this text is really nicely written, that's thanks to him. And then it was up to order stickers, wrap all the ices. Each of the flavors so each of the flavors have a different story on it. So also peek at your neighbor and read their story. And then the ice shop, this was the sketch. That was a bit of a better sketch. That was the first setup. And then it was on the Dutch Design Week. There was also people listening to audio tours, explaining about the story. We sold the ice, and Roderick and me were present all the time, 24/7.
Oeh. Ik ga een ijsje halen. Mag ik een ijsje?
Ja.
Gadver, waarom is het zo zout?
Het is van zeewater gemaakt.
De poolkappen smelten en wij bevriezen het weer.
Ah, slim. En waarom is het dan blauw?
Nou, dat ijs is wit, dat reflecteert het zonlicht. Maar wanneer dat ijs smelt, dan wordt dat donkerblauwe water zichtbaar. Dat absorbeert alle warmte. Het wordt dus nog meer warming en nog minder ijs. En nog meer zeespiegelstijging.
Double trouble dus.
Ja.
En ik zie hier dat jullie nog meer kleuren hebben.
Zeker, er zijn nog heel veel andere ingewikkelde verhalen over ijs te vertellen.
Met een lekker zout ijsje erbij. Oké, bedankt. Ik ga weer de zon in. Doei.
Nou, die ice shop die opende, it was opened and also some, we even made it to the Dutch Design Week TikTok. And also to the VPRO website. That was it. En Roderick.
Meryl, sit down. We only have like 2 minutes left.
Oh, shit,
thank you very much for this beautiful and rich presentation. I'm almost jealous. Actually, I am jealous that you had this collaboration and that you were actually working together with Roderick, and that nowadays you can text him.
Yeah.
Will we see this ice cream at shops in the summer, or is this the end?
I'm not sure if it's the end, but I think it's not an ice cream that should be in the shop, because it's, of course, actually the whole thing is we want to stimulate people to think about how can we stop sea level rise, and the solution is not to eat more ice, but the ice helps to start that conversation. So it's more an ice that should be eaten, I think, on these kind of events or after meetings, politicians, I don't know, like not Albert Heijn.
I mean, you reached Dutch Design Week, but when I'm thinking of Roderick being in his office, maybe sometimes in a lab, maybe outside doing research, I can imagine that there's also an urge to reach out to people that are not at Dutch Design Week, that are not in this audience. Don't you also feel that urge? And couldn't you, as you, with your background and also in commercial kind of way, right, play an important role there?
Yeah, I think like it was never our goal to just reach the people at the Dutch Design Week. the goal, of course, with such an ice brand is that you can reach anyone, and I think that's still something that could be possible. But then it's almost a fiction. Yeah, it's almost a fictional thing with real ice cream.
Yeah. But what would help you? You think, from your perspective, from your knowledge and experience, what would help to bring this to a larger audience?
Yeah, I think more time, more space, as Cornelia would call it, which also requires more money, so that you can just put in more time and find these places where it makes sense to talk about this type of ice or to display it. Or
yeah. Hey, and in the beginning, you thought, okay, I really need to inform myself. I need to educate myself before I can actually collaborate with him. Is that true? Did you have that feeling from the beginning that, oh, I'm going to talk to scientists, I need to educate myself?
No. It's not like that because, but it was also because I'm a super curious person. I really like to dive into things. So I think it felt like a luxury that I could allow myself to have this one day a week where I would just dive into these articles and finally have the time to read something, maybe twice even, and mark things and think about it. So it was not like pressure, like you have to.
Yeah.
But it was more like, oh yes, I finally can.
Yeah. Because normally you don't have that time. Normally you don't have that contact.
No, often is of course like the end goal is sooner in sight, and you just have to move towards something. I try to always have this research phase in my practice, but it's a thing that normally is the most little time for.
And in what way did it shape your current position as a designer to have this collaboration, to have this network, to have that information now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's whatever happens, even if it would not continue, it was super nice to combine this scientific perspective with a creative solution in a project that now shows that I'm able to bridge these kind of things, these complex matters.
I asked Cornelia, okay, what was a challenge for you? Well, to sit on my hands. I can also imagine that if you have all that information working together with a scientist, that you feel that you almost cannot have fun anymore because it's such a serious topic.
With Roderick, that's not really the problem. No, it was always fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
I think it was more like I really wanted to change something. I really thought, because he already works for years and years on this topic, and he really understands the problem. And as a designer, I'm used to always look for a solution. And I thought, like, why not? Why can't we fix this? How can we fix this? And then we tried, like, with all these sometimes absurd ideas, but sometimes also pretty serious ideas, like, maybe we can find just this niche how we can solve this problem. And in the end, we're not solving it, and it became an ice brand that in theory could solve it, but it's of course a fictional, and it's a bit of a communication thing. But I think that was the biggest struggle, to kind of somewhere decide, like, hey, we're not gonna solve this problem.
Let's go to Roderick. Roderick, I'm going to sit next to you as well. Roderick, what did you actually do to educate yourself to work together with a designer?
Well, I think Meryl is really fantastic. She came up with all these brilliant ideas. She just showed you a couple of them, but there were many more, 3-4 times as much as she showed you. And I just had to pick out whatever I thought was a useful idea. And I think that was a brilliant way of operating for me.
And did you choose in just a very intuitive way, or did you also use, in a strategic way, what do I really need as a scientist?
No, I think my main goal from the beginning was to try to get communication going on a different level than what I'm used to. And that went very easy with Meryl. So whatever the outcome would be, that it was always good for me.
This was just one outcome, but Meryl, and I know her as a very highly creative person having tons of ideas.
Sure.
I can imagine that sometimes you're in your office, maybe some ideas still passing by.
Sure, but we also had a very clear end goal in mind, being a deadline at the end of October. And that meant that we had to make certain steps and decisions earlier on during the year. And I think that worked out fine. And we had to leave some ideas untouched, which were possible also going to lead to something very useful. But yeah, you cannot do everything, and time is limited. But
and are you satisfied with that? Indeed, it went to Dutch Design Week, and it's going to stay there. Or do you also have the feeling it could go further? Or we could bring it to a larger audience.
A little bit of discussion on how this can be brought further, and I think we're not very conclusive. But Merel was approached by a museum in Dortmund, so probably it will go there next year.
Yeah, and there's also some interest to maybe make a movie, like from a science fiction movie that plays in 2300, where the world did not collapse because Merel and Roderick, somewhere back in 20-something, started freezing all this ice. So let's see.
Yeah.
Nice idea.
Want to be a rock star? Want to be a movie star?
Merel is featuring.
Man, but you too, right?
On the background.
In the background. Yeah. How did it shape you, collaborating with Merel?
Well, honestly, from the very start, the first thing I probably said to Merel is that whatever we're going to do, this is not going to change what I do next year. And in a way, I think that is true, because I still think that we need to find ways of communicating differently than what we did the year before. So next year will bring us, again, another way, or attempts another way of communicating science, because that will keep me busy for the rest of my life, I think. Trying to communicate science to the audience.
Let's try to visualize your profession in 10 years.
I'm retired.
What changed? I know, you will be retired, but hopefully there will be
but the issue is that climate change is not over in 10
yet,
years.
That's why.
Yeah.
But what changed in your profession in 10 years? What is really important that you changed within your profession?
Well, I think having attention for what your results mean, that is changing already, and that will change more and more, I think.
Yeah.
So it's already in a kind of transition.
How can we help?
Well,
time is the clock is ticking. Right?
More of these activities, I guess.
More of these activities.
Yeah. Broadcasting the importance of changing our behavior in the end, because that is where it's all about.
Okay, we will do that, right? In the audience, yeah. What?
But yeah, I mean, this is just 50 people.
Exactly. And how can we invite your colleagues? How do we get them in this audience?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure whether there needs to be that many of my colleagues in the audience. I would rather more say that the people in the street need to be in the room.
Well, we were talking about Merel. We need you, Merel, with your background, to really get these people in the streets here.
Yeah, or we get us to the streets, right? I think
we
can
go to the streets. That's another way of putting it. Can we get a big round of applause for Merel and for Roderick? Thank you, Merel. Yeah. Let's go to the next project. Let's invite Mathilde Stolfa and Haley Danielson-Olsinski here to the stage with a warm welcome. Well, maybe firstly introduce yourselves. We know the scientist, designer. Who's the scientist of you? There you are. What do you do? What's your background?
Yeah, I'm a PhD candidate between the Royal Netherlands Institute for Sea Research and Utrecht University. I study sea level rise and how it impacts benthic organisms. Well, more how it moves sediment or mud, and then what happens to the animals that live inside of that. And then I collaborate more with numerical modelers to project forward and see what's going to happen in the future based on what preferences they have and how that affects the rest of the ecosystem. Focused on the Wadden Sea for now.
Yeah, and then you meet Mathilde.
Yeah.
What was your background?
Yeah, well, I'm a designer and a photographer, and I usually work with site-specific installation that tackle like rising sea level, wetlands, intertidal areas. So I build things in wet places usually.
Okay, and when you met, did you go through the same first phase, really trying to get to know each other? What are the methods? I really have to educate myself before I can really talk to her and really work with her. How was your beginning?
A little bit of both, I think. So we actually sort of just hung out for a weekend.
Just hang out?
Yeah, we just hung out, we walked around. I showed you the institute, and then we just chatted. We watched a movie, had dinner at my house, hung out.
Watch a lot of true crime.
Yeah. It was more, I think, more getting to know each other on a personal level, and then asking each other really questions about how we grew up and how we see things, and yeah, really personal, just to get to know each other more.
Was that something you thought was very important, or did that just happen? There was a choice. Let's get to know each other.
I think it was both. Like, to me personally, if I'm working with someone, I also want to see what's there on a personal level, because the work that I do is also usually quite personal. And I want to find someone that has the same like enthusiasm and like driving force that I can build something with. And that's also what I found in Haley. It's like, yeah, if I propose something, she's so enthusiastic, and then she comes up with other ideas, and that kind of creates very good synergy, both on a personal and work level.
So in what way does really getting to know each other on a personal level actually contribute to the collaboration, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that for me personally, it's a lot of trust. I think we're working on a kind of collaboration, or this project, especially over such a long time frame, involves so much effort and so much thinking and so much work. You have to trust that your partner in it can do half the work. And to be able to trust Matilda to go forward and come up with ideas and kind of execute what we've agreed to was really important for me. I mean, we're both working professionals. We have time constraints, and the project was on a limited time basis as well. So yeah, I think just being able to trust each other and know sort of what's going on with the other person throughout the process.
Well, could you maybe then explain to us why it's so important to really get to know each other on a personal level? How intimate does your work actually get?
For me, well, yeah, for field work.
Yeah. Maybe give us an example of how intimate you get into the field.
Should we talk about being in the boat?
Go for it.
So the type of work I do some desk work, which is statistical modeling, classic academic, blah, 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 typing stuff. But then I also do a lot of boat driving, where we sample the seafloor from the edge of a small boat. Oh, yeah. Hey.
Yeah, there's
That's my boat. That's my boat right there.
Okay.
And it's really intense, and sometimes the waves are massive, and the weather is freezing, and you're exhausted, and it's the end of a day. You can, yeah, get really kind of at your limit. And you see each other in this place where you're exhausted, you're hungry, you're tired, you've got cuts or rope burns on your hand. All you want is a cup of coffee and to be back in the nice warm boat. And then you're here with somebody who, ideally, if you have a good working relationship with, it's great. But being able to collaborate together to know each other and to give each other that grace and that space when you're at your lowest, when you're at your most exhausted, to be able to push through and have this motivation together. Yeah, I think that really just makes a difference.
Yeah, also like motivating each other while we were doing field work, but also while we were building the installation. We had to move hundreds of kilos of ice and sediment, and some of our friends also came by to help out, and then we also had people stopping by asking, oh, what you're doing. So like just knowing that you could rely on the other person to do very intense physical labor for sure, but also to just be there with their heart in the project. And it was also the same on the boat. Like some of the days were exhausting, but then you're like, okay, we still have to do a better time than other teams because we're competitive. So, let's take this sample faster and speed through the next point. It worked many times.
And Matilda, did you, when you started this collaboration, did you know you were going to be on a boat doing all this hard work? Or did you imagine yourself doing desk research? And what was your idea?
No, I didn't know, but I was somehow hoping for it, because a few months prior to getting into the project, I was talking to my mom, telling her, next year I really want to go on a sea research ship. And somehow it happened, and she also made it happen. And it's an incredible experience, and it's hard work, but it pays off.
So now imagine you two sitting on a couch or watching true crime series, and then the next day, oh, let's get on a boat, let's do my job. And then she's like, okay. But what were you actually doing? What were you working on together?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I think that what we wanted to do was like to create a project that was kind of giving this like simple, straightforward idea of like Haley's work of like rising sea level and all the changes in benthic environment in the Wadden Sea, but also kind of trying to show what the scientists go through in their fieldwork and daily life, because you have usually this notion of science that is very much like lab, like desk related, but that's not only it. And that also, you know, the places that are like kind of suffering from the consequences of like climate change are real places. And I think that's also what helped so much in the project, that we started from the Wadden Sea, that is a place in which you can be, that you can observe, that you can really like dive into. So it was all this like merging of things between, yeah, what they do and what's happening, and how can we communicate it, and how can we also investigate it.
Yeah. So where they were actually bringing the knowledge of the scientists closer to the audience, to a greater audience actually, you say we actually should also bring the work of the scientists closer to the people.
Yeah.
So that they actually see the person also maybe behind the scientist. Why is that important?
Yeah, I think it's... I think it can be really easy to assume, and of course not speaking for everybody, it can be easy to assume that scientists are just cranking out papers, doing this like hardcore, not... I've been told to my face before that scientists are not connected to their study systems, whether that be emotionally or mentally or in the heart or whatever. And I'm thinking, this is my home. This is my office. I mean,
when did people tell you that?
It's a couple of years ago, but it was really.
Do you also, Roderick, sometimes hear that? That it's far away from your heart? No, you don't feel that. But you were insulted, actually.
Maybe it was a one-off. It was more of a passing comment, I think, but it stuck with me. Because I was thinking, yeah, the researchers I know are some of the most heartfelt, involved, caring people out there about these systems and about these changes, and talking to them is where you're going to feel it the most, I think. So it is important to me that people see how much fun we have, and that we are just people out on a boat, and that we're happy to be doing the work that we're doing, happy to be there, and happy to be contributing to the outcome that we're contributing to, and hoping that it's impactful in the face of climate change.
So fast forward, you were watching true crime, get on a boat, and decided we have to create something of a storytelling project, concept. This is a documentary, right? We are looking at snippets of the documentary. It's been shown probably at the Dutch Design Week as well. Who should see this? Everybody? Could everybody understand this documentary? What is the feeling? What is the targeted audience?
Anybody? Everybody?
Anyone that has like 13 minutes to spare, and that's want to see what's going on, and like perhaps open up a conversation about climate change. Like the intention, this kind of like thing that this sculpture or installation that we put together was just to, like build also something there and see what happens, see like who stops by. And then of course we had the documentation of it, but it was also a bit of a like one-off moment. And people, were stopping by and were asking like, why are you moving like ice blocks on a shore? And it's just like, let me tell you about rising sea levels. That was kind of the way. And I think that for sure there was like a long process, like lots of thinking, like brainstorming ideas, but it was also very like heartfelt at some point. I was asking her like, I mean, we were talking about the installation, like let's do something, but which materials can we use, you know, because also we don't want to do something that is too impactful. If we put something in the water, what's gonna happen? And she was just like, why don't we use ice? I was like, girl, yeah, let's go for it. So there was also this just like very spontaneous process of just like trying things out and like see where it goes. And yeah, this is what happened.
You had a lot of fun, didn't you?
So much.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, absolutely. I already told her that I would love to be a volunteer also on CBUS fieldwork. Now I know the job, I can write data real fast, I know what the jars are. I don't get seasick.
Number 1 boat assistant. I'll have you in my boat any day.
Thanks.
I want to ask you the same question. I asked them in what way shaped you as a scientist working together with the designers so closely.
I think for me it was really a big part of it was being reminded of the beauty of it all. And of these little things, especially when it's more material stuff, like the boats. I love my boat. It's my boat. I drive that boat all the time, thousands of hours every single summer. I spend so much time in that boat. But then little things. I think it was really when you would be showing me the pictures that you took, or I would get a folder of pictures that you had taken on the fieldwork trip, I would be looking through them and I would think, why'd you take a picture of that? And then I would look closer and I would say, yeah, it's beautiful. And little things like a window. We stay on a bigger boat. It's where we sleep and we eat. Or the way that the sun was hitting the water over the edge of the rubber boat, or things like this, where, yeah, it just kind of reminded me of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm happy to be out on that water as often as I am. Also made me realize that scientists often talk like scientists with each other. We were having
Why is that important to mention here?
I didn't realize it. And I pride myself on being a pretty analytical person, being pretty aware of my surroundings, and I underestimated the bubble that I'm in. Working in an area in research and then also being friends with a lot of researchers. We were having coffee one day with my friends, who also happened to be my colleagues, but at this time we were having coffee together as friends, plus my guest. And we're talking about how we don't like raisins. Like 3 of us hated raisins and 3 of us liked raisins. And we got into this extreme detail about it. I mean, like, to the point where we're talking about textures and how you eat them and if they come this way and if they're baked into something or if they're out of a box. And Matilda starts laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing at? She goes, I've never, ever seen a conversation get this analytical this fast, this detailed. She was like, this is how researchers talk to each other.
Yeah, like the raisin moment will stay with me forever, because I was like, okay, this has been going on for like a solid 10 minutes, and now I know exactly why each of you either likes or dislikes raisins almost unsettling depth. But I loved it, and it was not the only moment, because there were like many others, and I was learning about statistics. And crustacean and birds, and I got asked also on the ship by like some of Haley's colleagues, like, what's your favorite bird? And I was like, I think I know maybe 5 birds. So I don't know, I guess seagulls, but
which seagull?
I mean,
oh no.
I mean, I'm quite sure that our designers in the audience also have the same experience, that when we are amongst designers, we tend to talk about certain topics. You know, we can also talk about details, colors, shapes, you know, and some kind of storytelling always there. Actually, you actually have a lot in common, don't you? Even though you have such a big different background. When was it ever challenging? When did you notice, okay, here's something lacking, I don't understand this, I'm not able to do that. Did you ever have that?
I think that maybe in the moments where something was not clear, we would just like talk about it. So I never had this feeling of like, oh, there's something kind of not working. It was like, I have a question, I'm just gonna ask. And I think it was probably the same for you. Just, quite smooth.
But what can we learn from the synergy that you already have together? And Roderick mentioning, we should have people here in the audience that are not here now. Right, Roderick? That's what you said. We need to get people involved in these topics, in these projects, that are not necessarily here now. How could we do invite them? How could we do talk to them? How could we also find the synergy there?
I think in terms of finding synergy, the more people that we can get involved, the more likely you are to find somebody that you connect with.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can be as simple as not liking somebody's talk or loving somebody's interview. And then, you know, there's almost always a borrel after a symposium or after a conference or after some kind of social gathering, where if there's enough people, it increases the chances of you finding somebody that you connect with, that you're interested in collaborating with. But in terms of how to gather people, I don't know. I've always want to communicate my science and connect with people who want to get involved, and I want to be more involved in that kind of stuff, but it is difficult.
Can
Also,
you imagine?
time
Like,
constraints.
let's do mention a Trump voter on your boat coming along with you just the way that she did. What would happen?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
No, I think I'm a yapper. I can chat with anybody, but I don't think that there would be a common goal.
There will not be a common goal.
No, and I think that that would not be very. It wouldn't really harbor an energy of collaboration or synergy or progress.
Yeah. What do you think? How could we get people of other species, different visions involved in our project?
Well, I think we really have to work on a small scale somehow. Like,
smaller scale?
This is such, these are such big topics and so complex that if we approach them in a systemic way, I think it's really hard to find a way out, and it also can get a bit frustrating or depressing. But, you know, if you reach out to a few people and then really start a conversation with them, and maybe those people then also get involved with someone else, and, you know, this kind of word and kind of slowly spreads. And if you keep forwarding actions to specific communities or specific areas or events, it can make a difference. So I would say work with the people around you and then just have it spread. I think that's kind of the only way that maybe we can face it as small teams or because again, it's massive topics, and if you're approaching a system on your own, most likely you're going to fail. But if you approach smaller systems, then maybe something can change. So we can keep, going to events or building things, making films.
Watching films.
Also.
Watching series. Will you continue to work together?
I would
Definitely.
love to, yeah. Let's start writing grants. Yeah. Let's find funding.
Go right now.
Big round of applause for this collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we've just been listening to this story, all about synergy, right? Finding common ground, already having that, having fun, not only getting the work of the scientist out there, but also the way that they work. I think it could be interesting, actually, to get somebody of a different species and a different mentality and a different vision on your boat. I think it would actually be interesting. So I'm very curious if indeed that documentary you bring to a larger audience, together with the movie that will come of the ice story, who knows who we reach out to. And many of these collaborations often start with a conversation, a simple talk. When you are in the streets, when you're going to the bus, when you are at the cashier at the Albert Heijn, sometimes when you're just making a simple phone call. So many collaborations start with a simple phone call. Let's listen to some conversations just on the phone at the beginning of collaborations.
Hallo.
Hallo,
Hoi, met wie spreek ik?
met Juna.
Oh, hallo Juna. Hello.
So, are you a scientist?
I am a scientist, yes.
Uh-huh.
I'm a bit nervous.
You're a bit nervous.
Yes.
Okay, well, don't worry.
Ik denk niet dat we het kunnen keren op de manier zoals het nu gaat.
En wat is dat dan volgens jou?
How do you keep hope? It's funny, you're the second person that asks me this today.
But I have to go. Thanks for listening to me, and I wish you good luck. Once you have your own children, you'll think back of this conversation, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for calling, and good luck making your children into responsible citizens.
En heel veel moed en liefde gewenst.
Ja,
En,
hetzelfde.
we doen het samen.
Ja, absoluut.
Oké.
Hey, hoi hoi.
Doeg.
Who recognized their own voice somewhere? I see people there. Maybe just come on stage, Nikki. A big round of applause for Nikki Kluskens. I will run. Just for one. Did you also recognize yourself? What were you saying?
I was the one wishing the gentleman his children to become responsible citizens. Okay. Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Vasilis Dioglu, a researcher at PBL Netherlands Environmental Assessment Agency.
And why were you doing that just on the phone already?
I mean, I wanted to join these phone conversations because it's nice to reach out, as has been said many times already, reaching out beyond our bubbles, communicating with the public. That was really interesting. So yeah.
So to you, that's also a very important topic that we should still focus on and address, to go beyond our bubbles.
The most important, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Nikki, what were you listening to?
A project by Mirte. I was just part of it as the other person on the other line, on the other side of the line. So this is not my project necessarily, but yeah, it was the climate call, so that people at Dutch Design Week could actually have a conversation with either scientists that were involved in this project or other scientists.
Yeah, so it was by, for example, Mirte Krepel as a designer.
Yeah.
They invited you. Why did you actually collaborate? Why did you let your voice be used for that?
I think this is also like what comes very close to what I normally do in my research. I do mostly qualitative research and having conversations with people. So not necessarily only asking questions, but also diving deeper in what people think and why. And yeah, this comes very close to what I've already encountered in my own job. For example, I also go into the streets and ring doorbells and talk to people, and I find it mostly amazing what comes out of these conversations. Not necessarily to convince, but give the ability to speak, listen. That's I think like what I loved really much, like a lot about this project of Mirte as well. Yeah. So I was happy to engage in that. Yeah.
It's actually what you already do.
Yeah, it comes close to what I already do in my research, my own research. Yeah.
Maybe explain to us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, I'm Nikki Kluskens, and I work at Technical University Eindhoven, and I'm mostly researching social implications or social aspects related to energy transition. So mostly on the not on the necessarily causing or like the causation of like the causal relations of why climate change is there, but mostly on the solution side, like how can we reduce actually the impacts of climate change by, for example, changing towards renewables, or like doing energy transitions. So that's more on the
in a nutshell,
yeah,
what you
in
do.
a nutshell.
Yeah. And we already heard you go into the field many times. When you were invited to actually take part in this collaboration for future, why did you think, yes, I'm going to spend my valuable time on something like this?
Well, I was actually like made aware of this by a colleague of mine who said, like, Nikki, I think this is really something you might actually enjoy, because I'm always very much looking for that relation of between like science and outreach, or not necessarily outreach, but like how do you get into that conversation with outside of your own bubble. So for me this was really like, yes, of course, why not? Really a logical step in not science communication, but like how do we engage?
Engagement.
Yeah.
And you started to work together with Lisa Mandelmaker, so we just heard your voice in another project, but you actually worked on another project with Lisa.
Yeah.
What have you been working on with Lisa?
We worked on what you see here on the futures, like the energy futures prep pack, and mostly it started from the conversation. Like Lisa is really working on making futures tangible, or like can we actually make conversation about futures and make that tangible as well. And one of our biggest projects is indeed like the project on reproduction. And we had this conversation on like actually tackling climate change is also very much about the conversation on how do we continue existing kind of as human beings, if you really view it from a very anthropocentric viewpoint, of course. But it is about surviving or like continuing existence. And that's actually what we then combined. Like how can we like look into that future and combine it with what I work on, energy. And that's what we developed into this energy prep pack.
What are we looking at? What is it?
Actually, we thought, okay, we as a couple can actually think about futures, but who are we actually to define the possible energy futures there are? And then energy in the broadest term of the word. So we developed this kit actually to like invite people to think along, or like actually not to think along, but to envision these futures or create these futures. Mostly about energy, and then again in the broadest sense of the word. So we asked them to imagine that they had a blanco page, and how did we do that? Like by saying, okay, imagine there's a power cut, and then you can start completely anew. Like how would the world then look like?
That's a big question.
That's a really big question. And then what we wanted to try is to see if then can we make this conversation also beyond electricity, because that's mostly what, for example, you see in research on energy transitions. Is really like how do we transit from one electricity system towards another. And actually, how do you engage people then with that theme or like with that topic? Is like make energy a broader topic, and what is then the concrete meaning of that? So on a personal level, on a physical level, what does energy mean? And that's what we invite people to think along with, like look at energy at very different levels. So both electricity, but also personal, physical, mental. And then how, like if you then would have a power cut and you could start anew, what energy would you bring into that future, and what would you happily leave behind?
What kind of people did you actually ask that question?
We looked into our own the people that we already knew. So that's indeed our bubble, but not necessarily people that were already familiar with the topic of energy transitions or energy at all necessarily. So, for example, we looked at like different characteristics. Of course, like we engaged people with familiar, like different backgrounds, different ages, different genders. Yeah.
May I ask you and also the audience? I mean, when we're talking about bubbles, right? I always have this feeling that we say, indeed, we are in a bubble. But if I imagine talking to my mom, my brother, my sister are very close to me, but they are really different. They are not designers. They're not scientists at all. So was it friends, family you were talking to? Was it indeed somebody who could actually count as not really in your bubble? Did you?
Now I'm really looking. Like, of course, I don't know. Like, we both invited people that were reachable, kind of. I don't know, for example, the people that Lisa invited. Of course, I know them now by name, but I don't know them personally. But also looking at they don't necessarily all know really well what we actually do for a job necessarily. Like, for example, of course, your friends know what you do for a job, your colleagues know what you do, but like really like the real content of that, yeah, sometimes is more abstract than really detailed, right? So what this did was actually going beyond any needed knowledge or pre-required knowledge.
How did you help them then? Such a big question.
Yeah, we ask very different questions related to energy. So, for example, what gives you energy in the day? What makes you happy? Also, how does energy smell actually? We have no idea on like what people actually do, and they could actually answer these questions with either making photos or drawings, writing down stuff, and yeah, last but not least, they also send us something. Okay, what is then if we can make a metaphor for something that carries that energy in the future? What would you then actually? Yeah, what would that actually be? And that's also something like a little object that they sent back to us.
And was there some kind of input that you got from these different people that actually surprised you, or something that really stick to your mind?
Actually, I was very touched, I must say, by what we received back. I did not expect that much personal stories to be sent back to us, actually. So also when I first opened the photos, I was first of all very happy that they were all, that they were, you see some of them there, but that they worked out. And secondly, it was also very touching to see how personal people actually think about energy on very different levels. So, for example, we saw energy related to friendship, to sexuality, to like we call it little life, like the daily life of people, like in very, like the cup of coffee, for example, that gives them joy, but also places that they would like leave happily behind, certain foods, so like it was really personal, I think, which also engaged people in a different way than energy transitions necessarily, I think.
It's really nice. Now I'm listening and I'm thinking about what we've all been listening to. First, we have them over there actually bringing the knowledge of the scientists close to a larger audience, right? Then we have you, who are actually bringing the work of the scientists closer to a larger audience. And here you actually get people to work as scientists and designers by simply giving them a research pack. And then you get all these results. How did people, when they were actually looking at it themselves, respond to seeing the result they were actually creating?
I think I've seen in my own work, I've seen many times that when I engage with people, that it's really difficult to give them something back, right? So always sometimes it feels a bit like knowledge extractions without giving. But what the feedback that we got is like it was very playful, because people could use different ways of answering. So photographs, drawings, but also even almost existential questions. Like I had also one colleague coming to me like, yeah, Nikki, actually this whole thing made me think so much deeper about energy on many levels. Well, he is
this is a colleague of yours.
A colleague, yeah. Well, the person is also very much involved in energy research, mostly. So, like he came to me, like it really made me question: what do I actually like the most? What gives me energy the most? It gave them also something back in that regard to engage with things on a deeper level, almost philosophical level.
It feels a bit unfair to talk about Lisa while she's not here. But in what way do you think you shaped her as a designer? What did you shaped her? What did you give her, you think?
I find that a really difficult question. I think we just learned, like what we did, we took both our professions and we kind of looked what, if we combine them, what can come out of it. So, it's a very good question. I think the space to have these discussions on on many levels. I think she gave me other viewpoints on what we can do with the meaning of energy, and I gave her other viewpoints on them. Both looking at, okay, but how can we make this tangible to talk about futures? So I think it was very much,
like a mutual.
Yeah.
And what are you bringing into your own professional future from this collaboration together with Lisa?
Well, I think like for me, this was really a nice experience to incorporate a different form of, I've said it multiple times already, I think, but a different form of creativity into what I do as a researcher. And for example, we are, as researchers, we are also bound to certain rules of knowing, or like which of course are there for a reason, and but this opens up a space of like researching or like doing conversations and create that space for other ways of knowing as well. And I think it's also about speaking different languages also as a researcher to combine this with for example, designer insights and stuff. So
I asked Ulrich, he said, well, in 10 years I'm going to be retired. You are not going to be retired. You'll still be that scientist. Maybe also, as he mentioned, I'm going to do what I'm doing. How do you hope your future as a scientist would change?
Opening up science with these kind of spaces for collaboration. I think also, I also consider myself lucky that I can now, make it part of a PhD project, or like part of my PhD. So also very happy to be free in that way, to incorporate this experience into the more scientific realm. So I hope to be able to engage more with this, with these kind of projects or collaborations in that regard, because I found it a very nice way also to engage people, and that's what I learned as well. Like as a researcher, I study engagement. So why do people engage? And this is actually a very nice form of action research to see what happens if you just throw something at people and how they actually engage.
Yeah, and I already asked them, and I'm also going to ask you. Are we going to spread these packages or what do you think? What should happen to these packages you created?
Like Lisa and I have talked about the ambition to make kind of a very big rainbow of energy futures. So very elaborative. Now it's only 10 people that actually envisioned these energy futures, but. We hope to do that across the whole of the Netherlands, and also spread that, not only at Dutch Design Week, for example, not Dutch Design Week public, but also wider engaging, go into neighborhoods, see what, But that's
Beautiful.
just an ambition, and
How can we contribute to that ambition?
Space and funding, I think, is
space and funding.
Is a big.
We keep repeating ourselves. Yeah. Well, I mean, climate change, of course, affects us all. We know that, but not everybody seems to understand that. But when we're talking about energy, I think more people already are aware that this is involving all of us, right? It's touching us in our wallet directly. So probably it's a low-hanging fruit to actually bring this project to a large audience, to get people involved and to really get them into these spaces. Nikki, I would like to thank you very much. Maybe you can already think about how indeed we could help you, to support you to bring those packages over there. But I also want to ask you, all of you, what if indeed this project can continue? And in what way then, in 10 years, whether you are a designer, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a lawyer, whatever, artist, photographer, in the back you are, what should change in your profession? How could we actually change our own profession, being a scientist, being a designer, to really make our work more valuable. Because we aren't doing it for nothing, right? We aren't in our offices, in our boats, for nothing. We would love to have a larger audience here. It's a very important topic, right? What could we do? I already see somebody waving. That's really nice. I'm going there. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Francis. I work at the Amsterdam Law Hub. We're like impact attached to the law faculty of the University of Amsterdam. And actually, I am familiar with the Foundation VR group, but I think a lot of my work is directly working with researchers. So any researcher at the law faculty who wants to do something impactful gets to sit with me first, and we discuss how to best do that. And I think I notice a lot this push to have researchers do more and more activities and become also marketing people and social media and all of that sort of stuff. But they're researchers, and I think the answer is these kinds of collaborations is to get artists and creators and things who are already good at this and let them do that, and let the academics do their academic work and create the ability for people to meet and collaborate more with spaces like ours that can provide the networks that you need to get actually the trust from societal groups to take part in it. But I don't think you can try and make everybody be everything. I think instead you just need to ensure that they can work together and everybody can be their own expert in a collaborative sort of way.
Well, what you don't know, but what the rest knows, that I already mentioned you are going to be here. And it's really nice to have you here because, you know, with a background in law, you always are able to find the right words at the right moment. That's very nice. So I'm going to ask you to think of a conclusion of this evening, of what you've been hearing, and also in what way, in your background, in your world, design and science could actually help you do your better. Okay? Okay. Big round of applause for Nikki. Nikki, you can relax. We're going over time. I'm very sorry for that. We're going to have a little break, listening to a beautiful instrument played by Lucija Gregov. She will install herself here with the KNURL instrument, who's actually been involved in projects around climate change. And I would like to give you that question, why we have that kind of meditative state, listening to the KNURL. How can we change our own profession to contribute to actually making valuable things, really having an impact on the things and the important topics that we are doing? Are you ready? Big round of applause for Lucija on the KNURL. Thank you, Lucia. Go and sit down on the couch. So what are we looking at here?
Hi. Yes. I'll just have a
Of course.
of this. Yes, so this instrument is called KNURL. It's an electroacoustic cello-inspired instrument. It was invented by Rafaela Andrade, who is a colleague of mine. And she designed it, she 3D printed it, and programmed the software by which the instrument operates. And last year, she actually gave it to other cellists to explore it and to find kind of different angles of how to deal with it, basically.
Do you know what it's made of? What kind of material?
Yes, so it's 3D printed, and the kind of material that the printer uses is from recycled plastic from the North Sea. So yeah, there was a lot of thought about, oh, if we're inventing a new instrument, well, what material should it be made from?
Yeah. Seems like it's very connected to the people that are in the audience.
Yeah.
After you've been listening to all those stories and you knew you were going to play for us, what were you thinking? What were you imagining?
Yeah, there were actually a lot of words and topics that I was like, oh, this is what we also do in music. So I think it's very actually intertwined and related. And well, I would say that maybe as musicians, we go a little bit into this kind of mental, kind of like meditative space.
Yeah.
But for me, this also, like, my practice is a lot about improvisation, which again deals with topics we mentioned today of how to navigate uncertainty. What do you do in a moment when you have no idea what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You improvise. So we do this all the time, except that in real life it can have more serious consequences than it can when you're making music. But yeah, I think for me it comes down to this focus of attentive listening. So when you really tune into sound and listen, oh, what is in the room? How is it sounding? How are these people sounding? And then also, what is in my body today? What sounds are there? Like, all of that gives me kind of input on what I want to play.
When I'm listening to this, I can imagine that all of you in the audience, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a designer, actually is resonating with you, right? When you are in the moment, Merel, for example, you, in your creative process, you have also all those feelings, right? And all those different ideas and the moment of the day. Isn't it resonating with you? Isn't it always also improvising in a way?
No, when I heard you say this, I was kind of jealous. I thought, like,
really?
oh, this sounds great. Like improvising is my biggest fear. I always plan out everything, make all these, have all these thoughts. So yeah, when you say it, you could say it like, I do recognize that feeling of you know what you want to do, and then you get into this sort of flow. But this sounds really nice.
So you'd like to maybe collaborate with her to actually learn to get into that state.
Yeah, take lessons.
Take lessons. Yeah. For you, Roderick?
Well, I think it's often underestimated how much creativity is needed to bring science forward. But so I think that also plays an important role.
Yeah. Are you an improviser? Easy improviser?
Yes, I think in science-wise, not in music at all, but I think that there's still the analog.
Can you give an example? Because I'm imagining, but it's hard.
Well, it's not. Progress in science is not as planned. I mean, I think everybody knows this, but at the local level, this also goes like that I bike to the office, and then suddenly, during my bike trip to the office, I realize, oh, maybe I should do it this way. So it's a form of improvising, and then you start trying to do it, and it works or it doesn't work. So, and then, in the end of the day, you make some progress. Not all days, but.
Well, maybe I'm the only one, but when I think of improvisation and also in my own work, we're all just doing something in the end, no? I mean, yes, of course, we've been educated, and yes, we know what we're doing, we are professional people, but in the end, it comes down to this moment, making a choice based upon so much more than just simply that which you are aware of.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that a lot of people have this kind of fear of improvisation, but for example, like here today, like you ask these questions and everybody's improvising their answer, like nobody came with a script. So nobody here knew what exactly are they going to say. So I think it's a very natural thing for humans to improvise. Like we do it all the time. I think maybe we're not so aware of it.
Well, let's improvise. You stay here. I'm going to ask Bernard and also Cornelia to get on the couch with us, please, to together end this beautiful session, thinking of the future, of collaborations for future. I've been asking you to think of our own future perspective in a professional way. Maybe come up with one word. In the coming 10 years, something changes. And in what way could you actually take your own responsibility to make that change? And I'm going to run around asking you to share your word, what changes in your future professional career, and in what way could you contribute to it? Thank you. Who are you?
Hi, my name is Rufus. I'm someone who's really dumb, and sometimes that really works in my benefit, and hopefully also in that of other people.
Oh, that doesn't sound dumb, that perspective.
Well, it actually is kind of. The way I see it is climate change is mostly helped by disinformation, right? And the fact that one of the biggest influencers on an international scale is the country of the US. And they've just elected someone who's all for false information. He actually made that a very big point on the agenda. But I think to oppose all that, stuff like this is needed. That collaborations for future is actually a means to put other narratives opposed to the narratives that actually help Shell win a ludicrous court case against the climate guys. Anyways, my question is, I feel a bit like, we're at a convention where people are where bakers are asked to make a new form of cookies, and there's a book with 10 of these bakers who've made these new cookies with the help of scientists, and scientists make new ideas for cookies with the help of designers. Something that I strongly believe in. But now we are being asked what we need to change in our world constantly. I mean, that's
what we wish, what our dream would be.
Yeah, but wouldn't the question be to those guys on the couch, like, okay, so now there's an outcome, and what are we going to do with that? Because in my opinion, I mean, I'm truly, I want to know, like, are you guys, do you see yourselves as a springboard for ideas, which obviously is very much needed? I mean, that I could, yeah, take that and have enough, or what is? I mean, is there any of these an outcome that you want to fully support and help?
Well, I think Cornelia already mentioned. I mean, we're going on tour, right? Cornelia, that's what you said. What is your dream with this project?
Well, it's not ideas or projects that make the difference. I think it's people. Yeah. And if for us, probably the biggest lesson out of this project is how do you work with 20 people in this process of uncertainty while being close, but not too close, but close enough to be supportive. What's next is try to create more of these spaces, share more of the methods of what we've learned, keep telling the stories of the amazing people that trusted us to work with us for these 9 months, which became for many of them more than 9 months. And for others, it will become even more because it will continue. And
Bernard, if you dream out loud, season 1 has happened, season 2.
Look, I think there's a way of working together now. And I think if we implement this way of working together on all these challenges that we see in the world, that where you think, like, how should I even start on this? And I think when you now see if, like, can we make two people, bring two people together, let them start without defining what they have to work on, but let them just start. And maybe then they let 2 others start, or 3 others start. And by this create a movement that will continuously evolve, and we will not be able to control it anymore, but we just start it and get the first steps out there.
But also very, very tangibly, I mean, we've just realized the importance of all of us understanding more about law, rights, and especially around the environmental issues we face. One of my dreams, in a very tangible way, is to create such collaborations between designers and legal scholars and see what they can come up with, what kind of actions. I mean, Francis, we've been talking with her already for months, dreaming up all possible collaborations that can happen. And if you have a scientist maybe there, you know, if it is about a court case around the North Sea, what if you have a lawyer, designer, and a scientist collaborating without being told who has to fulfill what role, but that they, from their own pure, deep motivation, define what really needs to be done?
What really needs to be done? You, what do you want to share?
Yeah, so I would like to wish, I mean, I'm trying the whole evening to connect, and there is something between me. There have been many moments that I just could not stop thinking of this Marie Antoinette story of people don't have bread, and then she said, you know, let them have cake. So what I would encourage you, if you want to have conversation, is to cross the class barrier and come out of this middle class bubble. I mean, I'm a scientist myself, but I think the distinction that you make between scientists and artists is not actually so crucial, because both of them are pretty privileged societies and they just want to keep that. And I would encourage you to cross it and then go to a place that is a lower middle class or maybe working class, and then see if you can actually also have this joyful time. I guess you are talking about a very different uncertainty that somebody who cannot bring bread to the home talks about uncertainty. And that surprises me a bit the message of this evening.
Can I ask you, because I think this is a feeling that I also feel, but I've been feeling that for many years already, going to these events, you know, hosting these kinds of sessions, and also him mentioning that there should be people in the audience that are not here yet, but it's very challenging. I know that there's many people trying. Bernard, is this something that you are thinking about?
Well, look, one thing which we see is that often, and I work a lot with policymakers then together, and what I often see is that experts are being placed in positions to talk about groups because they know a lot about. So for example, if we talk about youth issues and how we make policy around it, it's often experts on youth who will tell what has to happen. And with this way of working, I think the way of how you can implement it is that you actually allow the youth or any group that a topic is about to be part of the collaboration and be part of the process to see of what can be developed. So I think the issue that you're addressing within the current collaboration, definitely. Scientists have a position, some designers, while they are not always earning a wage where you think they're middle class. So they are, yeah, or less. Look, I mean, there is the possibility for this to actually allow people to be part of developing something. And I think what you're addressing is really right. We should implement people that are experiencing certain environments or issues.
Except for expressing that wish that the middle or even lower income to be involved in a project like this, what do you think would actually contribute to, if we really want to do that, what should we do?
Yeah, I wish to see what actually people who don't have the voice would think about these subjects, and not people who have already extremely big. I don't think there is little science in society. There's way too much science in society. And I don't think misinformation or lack of information is a problem. Lack of options is a problem. And I didn't see any new options coming up. I just saw the options in a different form, but there was no new options. How can you actually warm up your house without oil? How can you, bring,
and what could you do as a? It's actually really a very nice answer to the question that I asked everybody. Yeah. How could my future profession change? And then I asked also, what could you actually do yourself? What could you as a scientist do?
Well, I think acknowledging privilege is the first one to start with, and then also digging deep at actually what actually enables me to have this rest that can be an artist, can be a scientist, and those are all you can walk back. And what if they are taken from me? I mean, the middle class scare is the biggest, I think, barrier in my view of people not changing lifestyle, because they would like to have their middle class life.
Go up, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing this. Okay, I'm going to do a little round. Just come up with one word how you would like to see the future of your profession.
I always pick the word fun, because I think also talking to if the changing to the right thing is fun. Now I feel a bit guilty because I would say make sense for those people in the lower middle class, but I think fun is also important. Like if heating your house without oil is more fun than the conventional way, I think it becomes easier to make the switch.
Thank you very much. In one word.
Communication.
Communication. One word. One word.
Working together.
Working together. There's a two. Yeah, collaboration?
Yeah, better.
Positivism.
Yeah, positivity maybe. Positivism. Optimism. Optimism.
Economics.
Economics. Make it marketed?
No,
make it better
available for a bigger group.
Okay, accessible.
Accessible, yeah.
Accessibility.
Showing agency.
Showing agency.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
Creative.
Creative.
Inclusive.
Inclusive.
I also had collaboration.
Collaboration.
Incentive.
Incentive.
Personal.
Personal.
I really like improvisation. Actually.
Improvisation.
Yeah. Listening.
Listening.
Trust.
Trust.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Impactful.
Impactful.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Communication.
Communication.
Stepping into someone else's shoes.
Stepping into change perspective. Yeah.
Physical.
Physical.
Equity.
Equity.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. That's a beautiful word.
Inclusive.
Inclusive.
Empathy.
Empathy.
Creating shared values.
Creating shared values. Common ground.
Inspire.
Inspire.
Yeah. Elevate.
Elevate.
Getting uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. I'm getting to you, Francis, on the latest.
Not giving up.
Not giving up.
Connection.
Connection.
Structures.
Structures.
Power.
Power.
Cultivate.
Cultivate.
Deconstructing design.
Deconstructing design.
Being sensitive.
Being sensitive.
Listening.
Listening.
Commitment.
Commitment.
Yeah, collaboration.
Collaboration. For me, I think guts. I think to really dare to do things differently, really invite them, really be interested. And then Francis, you, future of collaboration for future. I give you the last word.
I'll go with trust.
I go with trust. Why? What is needed? Bringing law to this stage.
So, I mean, yeah, I think law is a funny field. It touches everyone's lives, whether they like it or not. So we are the strange doctrine field of study. And I think that what I mean when I say trust is, on the one side, is trust for from institutions and things like that for the value of these kinds of collaborations. I think there's not enough recognition, and I think it speaks to the point that this gentleman made, that we've seen in other fields the power of having a creative, an artist, a designer as a sort of shared language creator for people who are normally disenfranchised, ignored from the system, and those sorts of things. And an academic is not going to be the person who can reach out and get a whole load of trust from those people, quite rightly so, right? Same for policymakers. So yeah. Artists and creatives are people that build those trusted relationships between them. And allow people to take part in important conversations. But I think it's also about trust between the designers and the researchers, between the sort of institutions and things that are working in this field, that you can work with each other, that it is, you know, there's a methodology, there's steps, there's things that you can do to ensure that you have good outcomes together when you work together. And I think work like this really provides a kind of framework for that. So, in general, leap of faith, work together.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause for Francis. My sincere apologies that we've run so much out of time. That's my task, and I didn't really do that. I'm very sorry. But I really want to celebrate with you that we have all these possibilities, and we can actually do what we are dreaming of. And I think it's very important that in these times that we really collaborate and really hold each other and support each other in the things that we are doing. So let's get that book to your colleagues. Let's try to change the way we are working. Let's really start and continue to collaborate. And let's continue to also follow collaborations for future. Thank you very much. Let's have a drink.